Hey, this is QUADBOOL, a quad logic module from XOXO Modular, and it's pretty damn cool. Okay, so let me explain how this module works. Essentially what you've got are 4 quads that operate independently by default. I'll show you how one of them works, and you can apply that to any of the 4. So the first thing to know is that the LEDs indicate what the output is of that quad. So the A and B inputs have a logic operation applied to them, and then that produces the output. Obviously, you can see this output is on and the rest are off right now. And that's because of the logic modes that are selected by default for these. To change logic modes, you just hit the button. Now, it happens sort of quickly the way that it indicates which logic mode you're switching to. So let me explain first how this works. If it indicates just this LED for a moment, that's the AND operation. Just this one would be the OR operation, and just this one would be the XOR, or exclusive OR operation. So there are 3 more operations, but they're essentially the inverse of those 3. So when that happens, this final LED indicates that it's the inverse of AND or XOR. So let me just hit the button, and I've switched to the OR mode. If I hit it again, it's switched to XOR. If I hit it again, it's switched to AND, but with the inverse. I will hit it again. That's OR, but the inverse. And this is XOR with the inverse. So like I said, it happens pretty quickly because it wants to get right back to the business of showing you what the output is. But you can see that you are essentially cycling through 3 different logic modes or logic operations, and then the opposite of those 3. And it indicates those all with just these 4 LEDs. So let's take a look right now. If I set this back to OR, what I can do is take one of these clock outputs from disting EX and feed it into A, and what I get is the output of a logic operation that is the clock combined with nothing. Let me add, well, let's see what else we've got. If I switch to the AND operation, you'll see that I have no output. And that's because this one, no matter what's coming in here, if it's a logic operation with nothing and the AND operation is combining them, then there's no output. So it really totally depends on which operation you've selected. Let me just choose a different clock here. This is the same clock but divided by 3, and now we can see that we've got the AND combination of these 2. So anytime they're both high, a logic high or a gate is on, then it will produce some output. So you can see there's an interesting combination already just by combining those 2 with the AND operation. If I switch it to OR, we get a different result. XOR is exclusive OR. And again, if I keep going, I get the opposite of those things. So I get the opposite of AND, I get the opposite of OR, and the opposite of XOR. So that's essentially it. That's all you really need to know about the module, is that we can change the logic mode by pressing this button repeatedly. It cycles through the 6 logic operations. There are 3, and then another 3 that are the inverse. And that's it. They all 4 of them work independently by default. Now, there are 3 kind of special features of the module that are useful to know, even if you're just using it in the way that I've described so far. The first is that you can hold down the 4th button, and if you have to hold it down for at least 3 seconds, which is longer than you'd expect for a long press, right? And that's on purpose. So if I let go, you'll see all 4 of the LEDs flash, and that means the buttons are locked now. So no matter what I do with pressing these buttons, all it does is indicate which logic mode it's in, or which logic operation is being used for that quad, but it doesn't change anymore. So that's good for performance, maybe where you've got this set up with 4 different operations and you don't want to accidentally bump the button. The next feature is that you can save the settings. So if you hold down the 2nd button and again hold it down for at least 3 seconds and then let go, you'll see all the LEDs flash from bottom to top, and that means it's successfully saved. And the next time you boot up, all of the logic operations will be in the same place. and whether you've locked or whether you've locked the buttons or not is also saved. It will also save which mode you're in. Now there are 3 alternate modes, and I'll talk about those in a minute, but I'll show you one last thing, which is to get out of the locked button state or to reset all the operations to their defaults. You can just hold down the top button while you power up the module. So when I let go, I should see the flash, and that means we're back to the original setup, which is the kind of default operations and no locked buttons. Okay, so what do I mean by normal mode of operation? Well, there are 3 alternate modes, and to get into those, you hold down either the second, third, or fourth button while you're booting up. If I hold down the second button and turn the module on, when I let go, it'll acknowledge that it's in that second or in that alternate mode. And this one is drop A. So if you look in the manual, it gives you more information, but drop A means that anything that's sent in to the A input gets forwarded to the A input of all of the other quads. So already this is kind of interesting. This is the setup that I showed at the start of the video, but if we take 2 inputs here and then feed the output of the quad A, the first quad to a drum, and I could take the output of the second quad, feed that to a different drum, the third to another drum, and I could do the same with the fourth. Now you can see the second and the fourth aren't actually doing anything, but if I change those, and of course I can also change the divisor for this second one . Now, this doesn't work the way you would normally expect normalization to work. So A is getting forwarded to each of these A inputs. You might think, based on your experience with other modules, that plugging something into this A jack will break that normalization for the rest of the inputs. And it doesn't work that way. The way it works is that it takes whatever input you feed it and it XORs it with the original. So we can get kind of further complexity . Just shows you that there's even more complexity than just breaking the normalization. It actually combines that using the XOR operation with the original input. So it's the same down here. You know, these are not affected by the fact that I injected a new signal in here. The normalization doesn't work that way. So let's turn this off, and I will show you the next mode, which is holding down the third button while you boot up. This is called A²+B², and if I let go, it should show me that that mode is selected. I'll turn on the clock again, and we'll see what we get. Let's take this one out of the mix. So it may not be obvious what's happening, but both A and B, both A and B inputs are coming down to the A and B inputs of the other quads. Now, you can do the same here. If you take something and insert it into B or A, oh, that's me touching, which is kind of exciting, it will combine it using XOR with the original B. Let me show you the last mode, which is daisy chain. And if I hold down the bottom button while booting it up, and what this does is it takes the output of this operation and feeds it to the input of this one. The output of this operation feeds it to the third one, and the output of the third one feeds it to the last quad. So again, just daisy chaining outputs to inputs. Means that you don't have to use these tiny patch cables, which we do sell in the store, but it's kind of a different way of working. So hopefully I've shown you that logic doesn't have to be boring. There's actually a lot of interesting possibilities with this module, given the fact that we've got 4 different quads that we can work with. We've got these special alternate modes, and we've also got the ability to save settings, lock the buttons. We can also get weird though. Instead of using clocks, triggers, gates, like you'd expect to combine those signals and get something new, or to create patterns, we can also do things like So really, there are actually a ton of possibilities beyond just logic, right? Just combining clocks and gates and getting clocks and getting gates out of it. So hopefully you can find some other weird possibilities with this thing. And if not, you've got plenty of options for just creating patterns using different clocks and different gates coming in.